Hello, I'm Wu Huifang from Beijing Orenbit Technology Company. Thank API China for holding such an online activity during COVID-19, which give our industry more vitality in spring. I'm also very happy to meet you here at the invitation of the API China, which has been a variety of academic and industry activities on the spot during the show. And I believe that today's webinar, for the first time, will also bring us a very meaningful experience. Today, I will report to you on the topic of China's import and export situation analysis of APIs in 2019 and the challenges in 2020. In fact, I want to focus more on the market of raw materials in such a special period and the global epidemic, and I have some views to share with you. Well, I will start now and have about 40 minutes to report. The main content today is actually relatively simple because I have made some similar reports before. First of all, I would like to talk about the general situation of our exports of active raw materials and some pharmaceutical finished drugs in 2019. Next is some general situation from January to February 2020. Then some examples of typical varieties we have collected. The third is my personal view of the raw material market outlook in 2020. In 2019, the situation of China's raw material exporters' commodities should be said to form two different development situations. First of all, the growth of imports is more obvious, while the quantity of exports has slowed down, and even some kinds of raw materials have a downward trend. The main influencing factors are these aspects. One is the finished drug encouraged by the state, the finished drug preparation encouraged by imports, due to their tariff exemption and other factors. So this import volume has stimulated. Therefore, the growth of drug quality is more obvious. In particular, there are some high-value anti-neoplastic drugs, new drugs, diabetes treatment drugs, and brand name drugs. The second is that some bulk raw material have entered a circle of price decline. The third is that individual cases are affected by some emergencies, including the pig plague and African swine fever, which make some commodities short of supply and the price raise. Fourth, there is such a trend of globalization. The purchasing party is increasingly reducing the price of cost and the bulk generic drugs and competing for lower prices. In addition, trade protectionism and unilateralism in some countries have also restricted the sale of some of our commodities. In terms of the total scale of import and export of pharmaceutical commodities in China in 2019, the import situation is better than the export situation, such as biochemical drugs and Western drugs. The overall scale is relatively large. The year-on-year increase is also relatively high. The growth rate is relatively high. For example, biochemical drugs increased by 27% year-on-year. Generic drugs accounted for 60% of the total import proportion, and the year-on-year growth was 18%. Because this part, especially the preparation category, the country has opened these import doors, so the size and the proportion of imports have increased. Then we talk about the import of biochemical drugs, mainly from vaccine chains, serum products, and biological extract. The export situation shows a relatively large contrast, such as the generic medicine raw material. The whole year-on-year, although the year-on-year decline rate is not high, only 3.23%, the export rate of Western patent medicine dropped by 2.55%. It should be said that the main factor is that the price of some bulk raw materials has entered a downward period, while some products are also affected by emergencies. So we hope that this finished drug will develop towards the trend of export growth. But the current situation shows that we are still far away from this step. Generally speaking, the growth rate of exports has declined, and the total amount has basically maintained a balance with last year. In this year, this is the scale of in the past 10 years. We see that there is a change in the growth of imported raw materials, including biochemical and plant extracts, and imported commodities. So this is a change in the export commodities in the past 10 years. We will see that the highest is 28.28 billion in 2008 and 27.795 billion in 2019. This also includes biochemical, plant extracts, and chemical raw materials. In this category, we see that this antibiotic and vitamin are still our largest export. Secondly, food additives, amino acids, blood products, and the growing categories include antipyretics and analgesics, plant extracts, cardiovascular drugs, and nervous system drugs. These are the top 10 of 16 categories. Of course, we can say that antihypertensive drugs with obvious year-on-year growth. The growth of blood pressure drug is the fastest growth in the highest potential proportion. Of course, I do not know that it is related to the unexpected events of valsartan last year. Then the growth of cardiovascular drug, other than blood pressure drug, is also relatively rapid, as well as nervous system drugs. Other products such as weight loss drugs, weight loss related products, and healthcare products have also a relatively large growth. The following is hypoglycemic drugs, sulfonamide, liver drugs, diuretic and respiratory drugs, and contrast agents. Although the proportion of this variety is not high, their growth is more obvious. Also include are anti-malarial, antimicrobials, tuberculosis, and this dermatology drug. Main categories is anti-infective drugs, antibiotics, vitamins, and carrier hormones. Amoxicillin is more than 10,000 tons. Then it accounts for 7.98% from the amount. 6-APA accounts for 7.39%. the penicillin is gradually extended by the downstream of amoxicillin and penicillin, and this has replaced penicillin's commercial position. In addition, doxycycline and chlortetracycline are more widely used. Tyromycin in the past was very difficult to be ranked in the top 10 of antibiotics, but in this year, it ranked to be relatively leading position. Another rapid growing variety is amoxicillin, potassium clavulunate, and clavulunate. The vitamins, we know that vitamin C and vitamin E account for 16% and 12.41% of the total. Last year, the export volume was about 150,000 tons. All kinds of vitamin E add up to 190,000 tons, followed by pantothenic acid calcium, panthenol. Pantothenic acid is a kind of vitamin, as well as vitamin B12. Because there are many kinds of vitamin B12, and the other is choline chloride.